Okay,
All right.
so this is taking care of your hot tub. Okay, you got this group of chemicals right here. Okay, I'm gonna go through them real quick. This one is chlorine concentrate. This is basically a supplement of this, which is your salt cell. So your salt cell makes chlorine. If this guy isn't powerful enough, or let's say there's a demand for it, like, more people started using the tub, something like that, I may tell you guys add a little bit of this. But if you ever test the hot tub and the salt cell's working and everything's fine and your chlorine is down here to 0, okay, you can add this while using the hot tub. Go ahead and grab your measuring stick out, make it so that it says this 1 teaspoon, okay, right there. 1 teaspoon, pour this in, flick it in the tub, use it, okay? This chemical alone is what sanitizes the water. This salt cell makes that chemical. So if this is not producing enough for us, just like your swimming pool, if that salt cell on the swimming pool is not producing enough chlorine, you got to manually add it. Okay, there's no sense in driving a salt cell into the ground being like, okay, I'm going to turn it to max. Don't do that. Leave it at your normal setting and just add a teaspoon of that. Okay, it'll be much easier. This is shock. So this is number 1. This is what keeps our water sanitized. Shock is number 2. This is what keeps our water healthy, okay? So what I mean by that is chlorine goes into water. Chlorine attacks bacteria. Chlorine then becomes a chemical called a chloramide, okay? The chloramide stays in the water. That's what old, dirty mop water smells like, is chloramides. It's dead chlorine. To get that out of the water so that the water smells fresh and good, shock is added. Shock combines with the chloramine, causes it to gas off. How much should you be using this? Once a week, 1 of these capfuls. 1 of these capfuls is equivalent to 3 tablespoons, okay? So 1 capful or 3 tablespoons, you choose. There are 2 kinds of shocks. This one is called enhanced shock. There's others that are called non-chlorine shock. Okay, there's other versions of enhanced shock called like power shock or, super shock, something like that. It's an adjective and then the word shock. That's the shock you want to use for this tub. The other shock, the non-chlorine shock, that is meant for a bromine-based tub. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 1. Number 3 is your pH and alkalinity. You're going to get that from this test result, okay? So you can see here on the test strip, we want the colors to be those, the ones that say okay. If it's not, we need to adjust that, just like your swimming pool. Basically, pH and alkalinity drives the efficiency of these 2. So if my pH and alkalinity gets really high, it's going to push my efficiency of my sanitizers down low. If my pH and alkalinity goes really low, it's going to push my sanitizers really high. And we want everything balanced. So without the pH and alkalinity being balanced, you'll never be able to control your sanitizers. So that's very important. So 1, 2, 3, okay? That's the basics of taking care of your hot tub. Now, with the salt cell, okay, there's a couple of extra little things you're going to have to do and have to know. One is, how do I even put the salt cell in here? Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to come over here to the screen. Anytime that you walk up to the screen and it's black, if you hit the back button, it lights up. Or let's say you're in the hot tub and you want it to face you. Hold the back button and see, it'll flip the screen, okay? So hold the back button to flip the screen, all right? So you can see right now we already have an error code. See how that teardrop is flashing? All right, so that means something's wrong. Nothing should be flashing on this screen. So we'll hit the options button, and then we'll hit the salt cell button, And then see how it says system off, service required, contact dealer, testing status. So nothing's working. So we're going to go ahead and turn this system on. Okay. And it says salt system inactive, system off. That level, I see how I changed it and it kicked me back to here. It's because there's no salt cell in there. So we'll turn the system on. It says replace cartridge. I'll hit that button. Okay. It says press and hold. So I'm going to press and hold that. Okay. It says turning off pump. So if I had any pumps engaged, it would turn it off. But you can see there's a little circ pump running right now. And we want that off because if that circ pump is running whenever I remove this, it's just going to pump a bunch of water out of this hot tub. So now it says insert new cartridge. Okay. Now I'm going to press the button down on this guy. So I press the button down. And then I'm going to pull up. And this is what's called as a dummy cell. You want to hang on to that just in case, for some reason, the salt cell you put in is bad and you got to go return it to the store. Or let's just say, you know what, after a little bit, you guys are like, I'm done with the salt system. You need that to put in here because you don't want to leave this in here and let all this metal break down and go into your pipes. But this should last 3 to 4 months. Okay. See how it's black? There's not really too many dings or blemishes on it. What's going to happen is it's going to turn white and eventually it's just going to get used up. And then you're going to go through this whole thing of insert new cartridge, you know, to replace the cell. But that's really the only time. And see how it won't go in that way. It'll only go in one way. And then it drops in. And then I push this button. And you see how it's seated all the way in there and I can't pull up on it? So that's all the way in. This guy right here, this is just a beauty cap. It doesn't seal anything. It's just there for looks. So now that we put our new cartridge in, okay, we're going to go ahead and hit our back button. Let's see. Did not recognize that guy. So if it ever does that, I've had times where I've had to reset the breaker because I take too long. It's because we're standing here talking and now it's kind of froze up. But if that ever happens, what you would need to do is you would need to go over here to this breaker box and you would need to reset it, okay? And that's something you need to know how to do too, because someday you're going to drain and refill this hot tub and you're gonna need to reset these breakers. I don't know if I can quite reach it from here. I'm gonna jump up on this guy. So this guy comes open and see you got 2 breakers. They both have this white test button. It's important whenever you go to turn it off, you utilize that test button. These are GFCIs, so pretty much you could take this wire and stick it in the water while you're in it and you would not be harmed. But if these fail, you will be. So I hit that. If they go in the middle like that, they're still working. So you're draining and refilling this every 6 months to a year. You should be doing that to make sure that these are safe and working for your family. To reset them, I press all the way down and then I press all the way on. So you would do that to turn the hot tub off whenever you drained and refilled it. Or if the screen ever kind of goofed up like it just did, right? So this is its powering up sequence. You can see the circ pump turned on, but it'll kind of do that for a few seconds and then it'll go into its normal screen. Okay, and now we can go into the salt system and we can turn our level and see how now whenever we turn the level, the screen is different. So it's actually recognizing there's a cell in here now, so it's wanting to test for the salt level in the hot tub. If I wanted to test for that, I would hit this test button and see how it says salt system testing. What our goal here is, we're going by this little meter up here. That little blue line, we want to get it out of the red into the yellow and then barely into the green. If it's not barely into that green, it's going to give you this message and it will not work. Okay, so after we finish filling it, We'll add some salt, but pretty much this is what you would do. You would grab your bag of salt. You would say, okay, how big is my hot tub? Your hot tub's 400 gallons, okay? So this says 9¼ cups of salt. What I do, because this is off of a nation average, so there's other things that register as salt in your water, and one of them is calcium. And we have quite a bit of calcium already in our water. And if you add too much salt, there's no way to remove that. The only way to lower salt is to drain the hot tub and refill it with fresh water. Just like your pool. So whenever you first did your pool, it's not like they were like, hey, I need 24 bags, and they came out here and they dumped 24 bags in. They probably came out here and dumped in 15 and then let it circulate for a couple days and then rechecked it and dumped in a couple more. That's what you're gonna do here too. You see, this is our target level, and if we get below this or above this, it's not gonna work. So, and it's a pretty small target level. It's only 500 parts per million. So I don't want you just to go blindly and say, okay, the bag says 9¼ cups, 9¼ cups. Chances are you're probably gonna be over here. What I do is I always take whatever this says and I do somewhere between like 60 and 80%. So once we get this tub full, I'm gonna add 6 cups of salt, and then we're gonna see what happens and where it pans out, because we're not wanting to go to the top of the green, because what happens when you use a hot tub? You sweat. Your sweat is mainly composed of salt. So you yourself are gonna increase the salt level every time you use it. So if we start off before even using it, and we're at the higher end of okay on salt, after a couple months of using it and sweating in the hot tub, you're gonna be too high in salt, and you're gonna have to drain it after 2 months. You know, versus we're trying to go for at least 6 months, preferably a year, without you having to drain and refill this. So that's why it's important that we go slow with the salt and we try to get at the bottom part of it, okay? One thing that will determine, there's actually 2 things that determine how long the salt cell is gonna last. So it's gonna last 3 to 4 months, but can you get 7? Possibly, okay? Can you only get 1? Yes, okay? There's no warranty on a salt cell. It is going to get used, and once it's used, it's over. And things that can make the usage increase are high calcium levels and high salt levels. So if I walk up to a tub and their calcium's high and their salt's high, they're probably only gonna get 1 to 2 months out of that cell. If their calcium levels and salt levels are moderate, they're gonna get that 3 to 4 months. If I'm keeping both those levels as low as I can while the tub's still functioning, I'm gonna get that 5 to 7 months out of that salt cell. And these salt cells are $100 a piece. You know, so the difference between 7 months and 1 month is a big deal as far as yearly cost goes. So it's important that we try to keep the calcium levels down, and we talked about the salt, keeping that at a lower end. But how do I keep the calcium levels down in this hot tub? Because we're in the Mississippi River bottoms, and calcium's high in our water, period. You know, you could run through a water softener all you want, it's still gonna be high. What this is called the Vanishing Act, okay? So this is basically like a resin pillow, and it soaks up calcium out of the water, okay? And it lasts anywhere from 2 drain and refills all the way down to even a half of a drain and refill. I have several customers in Troy. This ain't Troy, so you're probably not gonna have this, but just as an example purpose, I have several customers where they have to buy 2 of these every time they drain and refill their tub. And that's because that's how much it takes to get their calcium levels low. And you can see right here, you see those yellow dots? Okay, that's normal. So like if I put this in the water, all right, and I pull it out and I squeeze it a little bit, not too much happened there, but this will leave like a little bit of a yellow residue that will come out of it, and that's okay. That's actually the chemical that's in here. But where this goes is this goes over here directly on top of this filter closest this direction. And you're going to run it 24 hours like that. You're going to stick the test strip in. If your calcium levels are low, take it out, put it in a bucket, save it for next time. And you're going to keep using this like that every time you drain and refill it until this stops working. And you'll know it'll stop working because you tested your calcium and it was at 400 and you ran it for 24 hours and it's still at 400. Well, it's not working any longer. Go get another one. But don't just disregard it, because it is like a $40 product, and you may get 2 or 3 uses out of it. But that's where it's going to go. Is it's going to sit right on top of that filter, and all the water that goes to the circulation pump is going to go past that and soak it up. So that's how you're going to lower your calcium levels. So, and your calcium level is found here on this test strip. And you see it says okay is the lowest part. Okay, see how it says okay salt? And this one just says okay. A pool is okay between 150 and 75. A spa that's salt is okay between 75 and 25. Preferably 25. So like right now, we'll see what you're at. Okay. So currently, I would call you between 150 and 250. If tomorrow this does not turn a turquoise color, you might have to go buy another one. But here's your pH and alkalinity. You see they're both fairly high, which is normal. Typically in our area, pH and alkalinity is high. That's why whenever it came to pH and alkalinity, the only one we give you is pH decreaser. Okay, so this lowers the pH and alkalinity. There is no such thing as just purely alkalinity lower. It's pH decreaser does them both. But if they're too low and you need to go up, there is a separate pH increaser and an alkalinity increaser. But you will never need that. You know why? You're a saltwater hot tub. Salt is made up of sodium and chlorine. pH and alkalinity raise from sodium, okay? So every time this makes one chlorine molecule, it also makes one sodium molecule, because it takes the salt, which is 2 parts, and it electrifies them and they split apart. So on a saltwater tub or a saltwater pool, the only thing you must ever have on hand is pH lower. Your pool should need it as well. You'll almost get to a point where, you know how I said this one is once a week, you're doing 3 tablespoons. You'll almost get to a point where you can start doing something similar with your pH decreaser. Just you're going to keep track of it. Like, hey, week 2 I added 3 tablespoons. Week 4 I added 2 tablespoons. Week 6 I added 2 tablespoons. Well, you'll see a pattern, and then you can make adjustments and start preemptively attacking it before it becomes a problem. To where I could say, okay, I've been doing 3 tablespoons of this, and it seems like every 2 weeks I do 2 tablespoons of this. I'm gonna start doing 1 tablespoon of this every week and 3 tablespoons of this, and you'll notice that your pH and alkalinity will stay better for longer. Same thing with the swimming pool. All the concepts you're gonna learn with this spa also carry over to that pool. Your pool, it's a saltwater pool, correct? Mm-hmm. So your pool is going to go up in pH and alkalinity every week because it's making chlorine, right? The only thing that offsets you with a pool versus spa is rain. And here we have very, very acidic rains. You're better off, like, for the most part, testing your pool. But I do like a lot of weekly cleanings on pools. And there's a lot of them where I am. Like, I'm leaving my truck heading down there. I got a bottle of muriatic acid in one hand and a bottle of shock in the other, because I know I'm using them both today. So it'll all become very predictable as far as the maintenance that's needed. It's just at first, it's going to be very, very difficult. So I talked to your wife about sending me test strips, and how I want that done is you take a fresh test strip out of the bottle, you dunk it in, you lay it here, and boom, you take a picture immediately. If this guy's older, You know, like you can see, he's all different colors now than it was whenever we first originally tested it. The older it gets, the less accurate those little pads are. So boom, within 15 seconds, a picture should be made and text me. The other thing I showed her is I want a picture of options, salt system, and I want a picture of that guy once a week. And then I want her to stand back here and take a picture of the actual like clarity and condition of the water. And all of this is going to play part in a long-term education